They always taught us a simple story, that the British Empire conquered the world with force, with armies marching in red coats, with warships cutting through the oceans, and with battles fought on distant continents. But that story is incomplete, and in many ways, misleading. Because the true engine of Britain's rise wasn't made of iron or gunpowder. It didn't stand on a battlefield. It didn't carry a sword. And it didn't shout commands. It moved quietly, behind marble facades, across polished wooden desks, through ledgers filled with numbers and signatures. The real force behind the British Empire was finance, not just money itself, but the invention of a system that could turn money into power, and power into empire. Britain didn't conquer the world with muskets. It conquered it with credit. The broken kingdom before the empire. When we step back into the 17th century, England was far from a superpower. It was fragile, politically unstable, economically weak. Its kings borrowed constantly, and they defaulted constantly. Lenders were burned again and again. No one trusted England. And without trust, there is no credit. And without credit, there is no empire. France had a larger army. Spain had more colonies. The Dutch ruled global trade with a sophisticated financial market England couldn't match. England was losing the race. It had ambition, but no money. And ambition without money is just a dream. The birth of a financial machine. Then, in 1694, everything changed. Parliament approved the creation of something new. A central bank unlike anything England had ever seen, the Bank of England. The idea looked simple on paper. Wealthy investors would lend money to the government to finance a war against France. In return, they would receive bonds paying reliable interest. The new bank would manage these loans, issue notes, and guarantee repayment. But behind this simple arrangement was a complete reinvention of power. For the first time, England had a stable, institutionalized system of public debt. The shaky promises of kings were turned into tradable securities. Investors didn't need to trust the king anymore. They needed to trust the system, and the system worked. England could now borrow more money, more reliably, and more cheaply than almost any other nation in Europe. This changed everything. The first financial empire. Once England had a functioning credit system, wars transformed. They were no longer contests of manpower or resources. They became contests of balance sheets. France might have more men. Spain might have more silver. The Dutch might have better ships. But Britain had something none of them had. Cheap, reliable, endless credit. During the War of the Spanish Succession, Britain kept armies in the field and fleets at sea for more than a decade. Not because it had more resources, but because it could borrow more money for longer at lower interest. Investors knew British bonds were safe. They knew repayment was backed by customs duties, taxes, and expanding trade. France, by contrast, defaulted repeatedly. Its borrowing costs soared. Its financial system collapsed under the strain. Britain won, not just on the battlefield, but in the bond market. A new power class is born, and with every loan, something new emerged inside Britain itself. A powerful class of bondholders, people whose wealth depended not on land or titles, but on interest payments from the state war, became a financial opportunity. Victory meant profit. Stability meant steady returns. The business of empire became the business of finance. The East India Company, Empire Inc. But war was just one pillar of Britain's financial empire. The other was trade, specifically the rise of the East India Company. It was more than a trading company. It was part corporation, part government, part military force. It raised private armies. It collected taxes. It negotiated treaties. It waged wars. Most importantly, it generated enormous streams of revenue. Revenue that flowed directly back into London's financial sector. Investors bought shares hoping for dividends. Dividends funded more expansion. Expansion created more revenue. And more revenue made British debt appear even safer. It was a perfect feedback loop. Credit, war, trade, revenue, more credit. And Britain perfected it. The 7 Years' War. The First World War of Finance. By the time the 7 Years' War began in the 1750s, Britain was ready to deploy its secret weapon. It borrowed over £100 million. an unimaginable sum for the era. That money financed military campaigns across North America, the Caribbean, Africa, and France couldn't keep up. Its financial system cracked, its treasury collapsed. Its monarchy fell into crisis that would eventually explode into the French Revolution. Britain emerged with new colonies, new trade routes, and new sources of revenue. And back in London, the investor class grew richer than ever. Napoleon versus the bond market. Then came Napoleon, a military genius, but a financial amateur. Napoleon funded his wars through conquest, plunder, and forced contributions. Britain funded its wars through investors. During the Napoleonic Wars, Britain borrowed more than £600 million. At one point, interest payments alone consumed almost half of all government spending, but investors kept lending. They believed in Britain's system, and they were right. Britain outlasted Napoleon not because it had more soldiers, but because it had more credit. The bond market beat the battlefield. The Opium Wars. When finance dictates policy by the 19th century, finance wasn't just supporting empire. It was directing it. China demanded silver for its exports. Silver was draining from Britain. This threatened the financial stability of the empire. So British merchants, backed by bankers, began selling Indian opium into China. The profits reversed the flow of silver. The imbalance disappeared. When China tried to stop the opium trade, Britain sent its navy. Not for justice, not for freedom, but to protect a financial system. And the profits, once again, flowed back to London. The City of London, capital of the world. By mid-century, London had become the financial capital of the globe British bankers financed. Railways in Argentina, mines in South Africa, plantations in the Caribbean. Infrastructure in the United States. Sterling was the world's reserve currency. British consuls and gunboats enforced repayment. Nations reshaped their economies to gain access to British capital. This was empire by ledger, empire by contract, empire enforced by debt. Britain didn't need to conquer your land. It only needed to own your credit. The system still lives, and here is the uncomfortable truth. This system didn't disappear, it simply changed shape. Government bonds, central banks, national debt, sovereign defaults, quantitative easing, IMF bailouts, crises that enrich investors while millions struggle. These are not modern inventions. They are the direct descendants of Britain's financial empire. Today, global debt is over $300 trillion. Wars are financed through borrowing. Investors profit from instability. And ordinary people bear the cost. We are still living inside the system Britain created. That is why financial education is not optional. It is survival. If you don't understand how credit works, you will be controlled by those who do. If you don't understand who benefits from debt, you become the one paying for it. If you don't see how crises enrich the powerful, you become the one sacrificed to protect them. History doesn't repeat itself in the same shape, but if you fail to understand it, it hits you just the same. If this gave you a new way of seeing the world, welcome to the Capital Historian Together. We'll explore the truths that history tried to hide.